Have you ever felt that unsettling feeling that the more you understand the world, the harder it becomes to find someone who truly shares your vision? It's as if each new philosophical insight, each layer of understanding we acquire, creates a greater distance between us and those who have not yet experienced this awakening. For many of us, there is a painful moment of recognition. A deep understanding of Kant's philosophy can so fundamentally transform our perception of love and relationships that finding a genuine partner seems almost impossible. When we face the great questions of existence, when we wonder about the nature of freedom, morality, and knowledge, we often feel lost in a sea of people who seem to live in a world completely different from our own. Kant's concepts, with their depth and rigor, often seem inaccessible, creating a chasm between those who have internalized his philosophy and those who live unquestioningly in the world of appearances. There is that feeling of inadequacy, that sense that no one truly understands the depth of the questions that now occupy our waking minds. I promise that by the end of this reflection, you will not only understand why awakened souls face such challenges in finding love, but also discover ways to transcend this seeming impossibility. This knowledge will not be merely theoretical, but will profoundly transform your understanding of how philosophical awakening affects our most intimate connections. Understanding now how Kant's philosophy illuminates this difficulty can make an immediate difference in how you approach your relationships, freeing you from unrealistic expectations and opening new horizons for authentic connections. Let's explore together this challenging territory where Kantian awakening and love seem to exist in perpetual tension. Philosophical awakening, especially through the lens of Kantian thought, represents a fundamental rupture in our understanding of the world and ourselves. In the Critique of Pure Reason, Kant establishes a crucial distinction between phenomenon and noumenon, between the world as it appears to us through our cognitive faculties and the world as it is in itself, independent of our perception. This seemingly abstract distinction has profound implications for our emotional lives and our ability to form intimate connections with other human beings. When we awaken to the understanding that the world we perceive is fundamentally shaped by the structures of our own minds, that we never have direct access to reality itself, but only to reality filtered through our cognitive categories, something fundamental changes in our relationships with others. We begin to recognize that each person lives in their own phenomenal world, constructed by their individual consciousness, and that true communication between these worlds is a far greater challenge than we had imagined. This awakening creates the first barrier to love, the awareness of the fundamental separation between individual minds, the understanding that we can never truly know another person's inner experience, only their outer manifestations, which we interpret through our own categories. I'll pause here and ask you directly, how many times have you felt profoundly misunderstood in your philosophical pursuits, especially when trying to explain to someone how Kant's philosophy transformed your view of love and relationships? That feeling of a chasm between your awakened understanding and how others perceive the world of human relationships. You're not alone. Many of us carry this silent restlessness, this desire to find someone who truly understands how Kant's distinction between phenomenon and noumenon, between duty and inclination, completely transforms what we seek in a partner. I'd love for you to share your experience in the comments. It could be something simple like, "My biggest struggle in finding love after my philosophical awakening is os, bees." Your comment not only helps me create content more targeted to your real needs, but also creates a community where others, who may be facing the same obstacles as you, can feel understood and less alone in their philosophical journey. It is through this sincere exchange that we grow together. So please pause the video for a moment and share your experience. Your voice matters more than you might think. The second barrier to love that emerges from the Kantian awakening is related to the conception of autonomy and freedom. In the groundwork of the metaphysics of morals, Kant argues that true freedom does not consist in following our natural inclinations, but in acting according to laws we give ourselves through reason. Autonomy, for Kant, is the ability to determine our own moral principles and act accordingly, regardless of our natural inclinations or desires. When we internalize this view, we begin to see conventional love, based primarily on inclinations and emotions, as a form of heteronomy, a submission to forces we do not rationally choose. The Kantian awakening leads us to question the nature of romantic love as it is traditionally understood, as a force that overwhelms us, that dominates us, that makes us act in ways we do not consciously choose. We begin to seek a love that is compatible with our rational autonomy, a love that is an expression of our freedom, rather than a limitation of it. But this quest puts us out of step with most people, who continue to understand and experience love primarily through the prism of emotions and natural inclinations. The awakened soul, committed to the Kantian ideal of autonomy, often finds conventional models of romantic relationships unsatisfactory or even oppressive, while their quest for a love based on mutual respect for rational autonomy remains misunderstood by others. The third barrier emerges from Kantian ethics and its emphasis on the categorical imperative. Kant teaches us that we should act only according to that maxim by which we can simultaneously will that it become a universal law, and that we should treat humanity, whether in our own person or in the person of any other, always as an end in itself, never simply as a means. When we apply these principles to romantic relationships, we are forced to recognize how many of our interactions are motivated by selfish interests, by desires to use the other for our own satisfaction or comfort. The Kantian awakening makes us painfully aware of the subtle and not-so-subtle ways in which we instrumentalize others in our relationships, treating them as means to our ends rather than ends in themselves. This awareness makes us more discerning in our relationships, more sensitive to any form of instrumentalization or objectification. We begin to seek a love that is genuinely respectful of the dignity and autonomy of the other, a love that never treats the beloved as a means to our satisfaction, but always as an end in themselves. But this ethical requirement sets an extremely high standard for relationships, one that few people understand or are willing to meet. The awakened soul, committed to Kantian respect for human dignity, often finds itself unable to accept the concessions and compromises that most people consider normal in romantic relationships. The Kantian awakening also transforms our understanding of knowledge and truth, creating a fourth barrier to love. In the Critique of Pure Reason, Kant argues that we can never know things in themselves, only as they appear to us through our forms of intuition and categories of understanding. This epistemological insight has profound implications for our understanding of the other in the context of loving relationships. We recognize that we can never truly know the other in their most intimate essence, that we are always interpreting their words, actions, and expressions through our own cognitive structures. This fundamental limitation of human knowledge introduces an irreducible uncertainty into all our relationships, an awareness that our understanding of the other is always partial, always mediated by our own categories. The awakened soul, aware of this epistemological limitation, approaches relationships with a humility and caution that may seem excessive to those who do not share this awareness. While most people assume direct and unproblematic access to the mind and heart of another, the awakened soul remains aware of the gulf that separates individual consciousnesses and the impossibility of bridging it completely. These philosophical barriers to love are not merely theoretical, but manifest themselves in very concrete, practical difficulties for awakened souls in their search for meaningful connections. First, there is the challenge of communication. How do we explain to someone who has not undergone the same philosophical awakening the nature of our concerns and demands? How do we articulate our vision of a love based on mutual respect for rational autonomy in a world that still understands love primarily in terms of emotions and natural inclinations? The words we use take on different meanings for us after the Kantian awakening, creating a gulf of understanding between us and potential partners who do not share our philosophical perspective. Second, there is the challenge of compatibility. The awakened soul seeks a partner who not only intellectually understands Kantian principles, but who has internalized them, who lives by them. But such individuals are rare, and identifying them is difficult. How do we recognize an equally awakened soul in a world where most people live unquestioningly in the realm of appearances and inclinations? Third, there is the challenge of commitment. Even when we find someone who seems to share our vision, how do we build a relationship that consistently honors the categorical imperative, that never instrumentalizes the other, that always respects the rational autonomy of both partners? The awakened soul is painfully aware of how easily we can regress to relationship patterns based on selfish inclinations and interests, and this awareness can lead to a constant vigilance that complicates spontaneity and intimacy. These challenges may seem insurmountable, leading many awakened souls to conclude that genuine love is simply impossible for them, that Kantian philosophical awakening necessarily leads to a life of contemplative solitude rather than intimate connection. But this conclusion is premature and fails to do justice to the complexity and richness of Kantian thought. For if Kantian awakening creates barriers to love, it also offers resources for overcoming them, for reimagining love in a way that is compatible with the highest ideals of Kant's philosophy. In the Critique of Judgment, Kant explores the possibility of a harmony between the cognitive faculties, a form of unity that does not sacrifice difference. This vision can inspire a conception of love as a harmony between autonomous individuals, a relationship that preserves and respects each person's uniqueness while creating something new and beautiful through their interaction. In the metaphysics of morals, Kant distinguishes between pathological love based on inclinations and practical love based on the moral duty to promote the happiness of others. This distinction suggests the possibility of a love that integrates feeling and duty, inclination and reason in a higher synthesis that sacrifices neither our sensitive nature nor our rational autonomy. Kant himself, in his reflections on friendship, which he considers the most perfect expression of the moral union between people, offers valuable insights for reimagining love. In true friendship, according to Kant, two people join in a mutual commitment to promote each other's happiness, each respecting the other's dignity and autonomy, neither using the other as a mere means. This model of moral friendship can be extended to romantic love, suggesting the possibility of an intimate relationship that is both emotionally satisfying and morally exemplary, one that honors both our sensitive nature and our capacity for rational autonomy. The awakened soul, rather than renouncing love, can seek to transform it, elevating it from a mere satisfaction of natural inclinations to an expression of our capacity for moral rationality and respect for human dignity. The Kantian awakening, therefore, need not lead to a rejection of love, but to a reconceptualization of it, to a search for forms of intimacy that are compatible with the highest ideals of Kant's philosophy. This reconceptualization of love in light of the Kantian awakening requires, however, a willingness to question and transcend conventional models of romantic relationships. First, we need to abandon the idea of love as a force that simply happens to us, that dominates us, in favor of a conception of love as a conscious choice, a commitment we freely make as rational beings. Second, we need to reject the notion that true love requires a fusion of identities, a submission of the self to the other, in favor of a vision of love as a relationship between autonomous individuals who preserve and respect their differences even as they create something new together. Third, we need to overcome the tendency to use love as an escape from existential loneliness, as a solution to our problems of identity and meaning, in favor of an approach that sees love as an expression of wholeness and self-sufficiency, not of neediness. Fourth, we need to question the assumption that true love is necessarily exclusive and possessive, that it demands a kind of loyalty that limits our freedom in favor of a conception of love that is compatible with the continuous expansion of our autonomy and moral horizon. These transformations in our understanding and practice of love are not easy, and they are not something we can accomplish alone. They require partners who share, at least to some degree, our philosophical awakening, who are willing to embark with us on the challenging journey of reimagining love in light of Kantian principles. Finding such partners may be difficult, but not impossible. There are other awakened souls in the world, other individuals who have undergone similar philosophical transformations and who seek connections that honor their new understanding. The challenge is to recognize them and create spaces where we can find them. This may mean seeking out philosophical communities, engaging in deep conversations about ethics and metaphysics, exploring art and literature that resonate with Kantian themes of autonomy, dignity, and freedom. It may also mean being more explicit about our own philosophical convictions, clearly articulating the vision of love we seek, even at the risk of misunderstanding or rejection. The awakened soul does not need to compromise its principles to find love, but it may need to be creative and persistent in its search for connections that are compatible with its philosophical vision. Even when we find partners who share our philosophical awakening, building and maintaining relationships that are compatible with Kantian principles remains a challenge. It requires constant vigilance against the tendency to regress to relationship patterns based on selfish inclinations and interests, a willingness to critically examine our own motivations and behaviors, and a capacity for honest and vulnerable communication. It also requires an understanding that respect for the other's autonomy does not mean emotional distance or indifference, but rather a profound recognition of their dignity as rational beings. Kantian love is not cold or impersonal, but embodies a form of care that is at once emotionally engaged and ethically grounded, one that honors both our sensitive nature and our capacity for rational autonomy. This kind of love demands a delicate balance between closeness and distance, between care and respect, between emotion and reason, a balance that is difficult to achieve and maintain, but which offers the possibility of an intimate connection that does not compromise, but rather fulfills our highest philosophical ideals. The Kantian awakening, therefore, does not condemn awakened souls to the impossibility of love, but invites them to reimagine and transform love, to elevate it from a mere satisfaction of natural inclinations to an expression of our capacity for moral rationality and respect for human dignity. This transformation is not easy, and the path to a love compatible with the Kantian philosophical awakening is fraught with challenges and difficulties. Many awakened souls will experience periods of loneliness and misunderstanding in their search for meaningful connections. But this loneliness need not be seen as a failure or a condemnation, but as a space of possibility, an invitation to deepen our understanding of ourselves and others, to cultivate the qualities that will make us capable of a love that is both emotionally satisfying and morally exemplary. The awakened soul, rather than giving up on love, can see its journey as a pioneering exploration of new possibilities for human intimacy, a contribution to the evolution of our understanding and practice of love in light of the highest ideals of Kant's philosophy. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the complexity of finding love after your philosophical awakening, know that you're not alone on this journey. The path to reconciling Kantian principles with the search for intimate connection doesn't have to be lonely or confusing. I invite you to subscribe to the channel and join this community of people who, like you, seek clarity amidst the maelstrom of fragmented information about philosophy and love. By subscribing, you'll receive weekly reflections that transform seemingly inaccessible concepts into practical insights for your life and relationships. We're not just studying philosophy, we're learning to live more deeply, question more wisely, and love more purposefully. Click the subscribe button now, not as an obligation, but as a gift for your own philosophical development. And if this content brought you any clarity today, please leave a like as a way to say, we're together in this search for true love that respects Kantian dignity. Remember, understanding the challenges awakened souls face in love is not just an academic exercise. It is a crucial step toward transcending them and discovering new possibilities for authentic connection in a world of awakened consciousness.